All right, welcome to the Indie Review Show After Party. Woo!
Yay! This is crazy awesome. I
Um,
can't believe we're doing an after party.
it's insane. I really wanted to just go through like all 7 volumes of that.
Yeah, dude.
Because it's so nuts.
Yes. And by that, Corey is talking about the book we just reviewed, the Manhattan Project. And we just reviewed that on the Indie Review Show channel. So irsagency.com. Go check it out. This is our after party.
Yeah, actually, let me put that up. Let's have that scrolling across the screen.
Ooh, that's smart. That's like that's very, very sophisticated. 7 volumes, 7 episodes. It's interesting because I am going to be getting into Klaus at some point, and I probably will do multiple books by Daniel Klaus. But if it were a series, like if it were, I mean, it is technically a series because they're all collections of 8 Ball, but it's like they're different books and different stories. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, I feel like with a series, it is like if I got to Bone by Jeff Smith, for instance, I'd probably just do like the first graphic novel because I have the graphic novels before they collected all of them. Because I don't think it. I just think it would be overwhelming or hard to even touch like the other ones, you know.
Yeah.
Like, which is sad on a big series like that. But then again, it's great because it gives people a taste, you know.
Yeah.
And allows us to do more books.
That's honestly why Chris says them's a lot of reading. That's honestly why I'm hesitating with Invincible. I kind of just want to do like every issue of Invincible ever. Like I almost don't even want to. If I will do Invincible on the show at some point, I probably won't do volume 1.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So I don't know. I might have to say, before you watch this episode, you should go watch the series so that I don't spoil anything for you.
It's smart.
But yeah, I don't know.
I like it. All right. Well, my coffee's brewing. I'm gonna pop out for like 2 seconds, but just to hang out. So we'll be casual about it. Welcome, Chris and Frank. By the way, just letting you guys know. Chris Kawagua, by the way, Sketchboy01, and also Kitten Rivet are all associated with Chris, but super talented illustrator, cartoonist. Kayla Davis. Yeah, thanks all of you for joining. Yeah. Okay, I will be right back.
Okay. Josh is going to do intros. I always feel like you can go get coffee. I'm just going to talk about you with your headphones off. It's fine.
I like it.
I always feel like it's the romper room when we start like calling people out. I see Billy and Judy and Susie and Sam. Anyway, Kayla, are you asking what show? Are you talking about Invincible when you ask what show? Because if you don't know, Amazon Prime has adapted Invincible, and it is really good. It is incredibly violent. So heads up there. But it's a good adaptation. It's a good adaptation. So anyway, so sorry, I'm just answering some people. But I like that cartoon. It was really good. And I'm rereading the comic. I'm on like volume 8 of this comic, and it's good stuff. I enjoy it.
All right.
If you haven't read it yet, I think Comixology still has Invincible 50% off if you want to get the digital version.
I am one of those people. I still can't do digital reads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just never gotten into it. I don't know. I'm one of those old, I don't know, it might be like a holdout from my generation, but it's like when I'm reading comics, I want them to be in print. Like it's also just a love of print. I love print.
I feel that way a lot, but also having an iPad Pro helps because it's just so big and portable.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice for like reading as you fall asleep or on the toilet, you know, like I could, but I don't want to carry like giant volumes of comics like in a backpack with me. But I always have my iPad with me, and so, you know, I can read on the fly.
Frank
so
was asked.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just Frank had a question. He was saying, any theories why Amazon is gypping you on your graphic novel? And actually, I do, from what I've read, because I don't think it's my publisher who's putting it. That is a possibility. Like my publisher might just be like, hey, maybe if we put it, and I guess it's gypping. But my publisher might be putting it on sale, but I'm guessing that it's Amazon. They do algorithmic sales that are based on like what they think will generate the most orders. And actually, a lot of retailers, competing retailers, have complained about that because it's kind of price gouging. I think they've gotten sued for it recently, but it definitely benefits the consumer in the sense of like, you know, like for me, my goal is to get readers, and so I'm like, hey, if I see a really good rate for like my book, it's like I think it's worth, you know, the $19.99 it usually is, but I'm like, hey, if you can get it for like $9.99, go for it. Like I want people to read it. So like that's kind of the perspective I look at it from, where I'm like, hey, if I can save anyone out there who's like a fan like money, then cool, go save some money and read the book, because I want to just really see the book sell. So yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, but anyhow, that's the answer to that. So you were saying on the iPad Pro, it kind of makes it like a little more convenient to do digital.
Yeah, I mean because like reading on your phone is worthless and pointless. There's no point to that. And then reading at a small, I mean, comics are already kind of small for what they are. I prefer them bigger because I like to look at the art. And so like, you know, the 8x10, 8.5 by 11, like, you know, kind of those types of sizes are already kind of small. But if you've got a 13-inch iPad, and you don't have to zoom in or anything, you can see the comic page full. And I like it. I think it's good. I still prefer print, but I also would rather have more comics than fewer comics. And so sometimes you can get the Kindle or the Comixology, or a trick that I've done, Humble Bundle. Have you ever purchased anything on Humble Bundle?
I have not, but I am like not the most tech savvy person.
Humble Bundle is pretty rad. You're supporting different charities while you buy these digital bundles of things like, it's mostly video games, but they also have books and comics are usually in there. Right now there's a big sale on heavy metal, which I've never really read, but they did have a Hickman bundle where you could get for like, I think it was like $45 you got like all of East and West, all of Manhattan Projects, you're getting hundreds of issues of comics for less than $50. And in that case, it's like, I would rather own the physical copies, but also saving myself like $300 or $400 is pretty enticing.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Anyway, there's kind of that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and here's the thing. I also really like printed novels, but right nowadays, like most of how I read like a book is through audiobooks.
Yeah.
Because like I have a stack, and that actually even goes like, that's one of the reasons I like the Indie Review Show is I have a stack of graphic novels that I need to read.
Right.
And like they're gonna sit there for a really long time. Some of them I've gotten like halfway through and then put them down and never finished. And I think like the older you get, the harder it is to like finish like a printed book. So like I also definitely understand. Like I'm not a purist in the sense of like I think it's a fine way to digest a book whatever way you can. But ideally in my head, where I like to be is like sitting down, especially with comics, because there's something so intimate about that moment and experience. And I can definitely see where like a tablet changes that a little bit, but still,
It doesn't replace it. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not saying that I prefer that. I'm just saying like for me it's kind of like audiobooks.
yeah,
It's often a choice between am I going to read this or not?
yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And like with audiobooks, I'm able to read and get all the stuff done that I need to get done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise I would probably read less, and
Yep.
I would rather read more than less.
Yep.
I think the downside to it, to be honest, I think I've trained my brain to not really be able to read like physical novels anymore, because every time I try, I fall immediately to sleep, because you and I are both running like just on the edge of like sleep deprivation, if not just actual sleep deprivation. And so like whenever, like if I'm like, okay, so today, for example, I got my trolling motor, I got my
Oh, Ox, you missed it, sir. You missed it. There is no going back. I'm just kidding. You can
there's
watch it.
all kinds of going back.
I know.
It's you can
Where
watch
can he go back? Where's the Wayback Machine?
you can go to irsagency.com, and the link is still there, and all of our past episodes are there. But yeah,
I love it.
but it won't be live. It's every Monday at 9 p.m. California time, 9 p.m.
Pacific. Yeah, that's right.
So, I can't remember what I was saying. Anyway, yeah,
you were talking about training your brain to.
Oh, right. Yeah, so like
because we run on sleep deprivation.
I can be sleep deprived like a little bit, right? I can be a little bit tired and still work with power tools, right? You don't want to be a lot tired and work with power tools.
Yes.
But a little bit tired. And so that's what I was doing today is I am outfitting one of my kayaks. All of my kayaks are just like paddle power. It's just me paddling. But one of them I've gotten a motor, a little trolling motor, and I got a little battery, and like there's like battery cases that you can buy on Amazon. They're like $65. I'm like,
sounds
I
about
got
right.
like a $5 Walmart cooler that I could just drill some holes in. So and then the rig of like mounting the trolling motor on your kayak is another like $150. I'm like, I only paid $125 for the motor itself. So I built that. So basically I had broken a paddle. So I had this just metal pole with a broken paddle on the end. And so I cut that up into pieces, drilled some holes into it, built my own rig. It's got what do you call this? It's not a flywheel, but it's like you can turn them with your finger. It's a nut. Is it a wing nut? Wing nut. So it's got like wing nuts, so I can like take it on and off myself. And then I modified this like $5 Walmart cooler with some rubber gaskets that go to a toilet. So I like completely outfitted one of my kayaks with like an engine now. So now I can like I have this battery powered trolling motor, so I can like go upstream and stuff.
Nice. Just stay out of 4chan if you've got that trolling motor. It might.
Oh man. Let's see. Sam says, Mr. Ox, definitely going to be checking this out because I got it alongside East of West bundle, and he absolutely captured what I wanted. Oh, Ox, did you get the Humble bundle too? Because I think those are the two that they came together. Man, East of West is so good. And we only did volume 1 of East of West. See, I have all these series that like they went for like years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested in the chats, what you guys think, how to cover that. Because so far I've just been doing like the first volume of it. But yeah, see, Ox knows the secrets too. Like I think it was, if I recall, I think it was like 35 to 45 bucks for like hundreds of comics. It was
now,
crazy.
because of just the little indie review show thing, whenever I'm having internal dialogue, I'm just gonna go,
Hmm. You know what's
and
really
you can
funny?
imagine like the Josh battle in my head. Like
I didn't notice this until I was editing the thumbnail for this episode. But
hola, Gary.
check
Or
this
wait,
out.
let me just say that in the most terrible way possible and say hola.
Did you notice that our color scheme went along with the evil good color scheme of this issue?
I feel like there's something wrong with the representation there. Like I feel like I should have been red.
Okay, so Ox is saying it was $15 for the bundle. I think it's usually like somewhere between like 15 to 20 for like the tier, and then you like they add stuff, and if you pay 20 bucks or 25 bucks or 30 bucks, then you get all of this other stuff. But yeah, I think it was so inexpensive. I can't believe, and those comics are so good, and they donate a ton to charity and stuff. I think that one was the Comic Legal Defense Fund, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, so you can do volume 1 in the IRS and go over to other volumes in the after show.
I love it.
Yes, that's a good idea. I kind of want this just to be a hangout, though. I don't know. Would it be weird for me to like circle back in a couple months and say, now we're going to do volume 2 of East of West?
I think it's totally possible. You can do whatever you want, like whatever books you want, whatever books inspire you, whatever, it's not, yeah, I don't think there's any hard and fast rules on that. It's our show.
Yeah,
We make the rules.
I'm just mainly, I still want it to be like a good experience for the viewers.
Oh yeah. Well, I think like the cool thing is, like I said, even with Klaus, it's like, or if I get to Chris Ware, like I'm not just doing one Chris Ware book. Like we're gonna do multiple Ware books.
Right, but with Chris Ware, it's not like a series, right? It's not like, I mean,
well, it
they're like
is in the
books.
sense. I mean, technically, right? Because the Acme Novelty Library is how he puts out everything, and then he collects them in like these giant graphic novels that are different stories. So it's it's all permissible. I think with series, I'm going to try to approach it in the way you are, because I think it's smart to just do the first. But yeah, Frank just said your show, your rules. So
yeah.
So I think it's possible. But yeah, let's hear what I want to know. Yeah, I agree with Corey. I'd rather know what you guys think, like in the chats and stuff. So
yeah. So,
but I do like the idea of some distance. Like even with the Winsor McKay, I broke from my rigid structure. I haven't taken that long of a break, but I still figured it would be really boring if like every turn I had was Winsor McKay. And so there's like the biography, which I'm going to go over next time, and then I'll make a pretty decent gap between that and like the coolest Winsor McKay book, which is the giant full-size Winsor McKay collection of Little Nemo. It's just like it's a beautiful book. It's like, but it's like I'm not even sure how to film it because it's like it's at scale, so it's the size of like the old newspapers at full scale,
right?
And like I'll have to figure out how to film it. But the point being, I'm not going to just do every week Winsor McKay. Or when I get to George Harriman, like that's a good example too. Is like Crazy Cat. I might show a couple of the volumes, even though it's all Crazy Cat. But I'm not gonna. I'll probably do it like you were saying, where it's like bookended a little bit. So
yeah,
like a lot of books in between, just so people don't get bored. Also, so we don't get bored, right? Because I think if we're not engaged or interested in what we're talking about, it's not going to translate.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, Gary said, I have a question for Josh. I'm planning on picking up my first Chris Ware and debating between Jimmy Corrigan and Building Stories. If you are starting with Chris Ware, Building Stories is, I think, almost like a superior book, just in the sense of like, but I think Jimmy Corrigan is the essential Chris Ware book. Like that's the book that like swept the Eisners when it came out. Like I think he got like best colorist, best letterer, best artist, best author. Like he got like a crap load of Eisners for it. And it's just a good introduction to Ware, like, and kind of Wareism. So I would recommend just start. That's also just me. Like, I don't know. It's the thing that made me fall in love with Chris Ware. Quimby the Mouse is a cool, like, lighthearted version too, if you're looking for like a good intro. But yeah. But just when you're reading Jimmy Corrigan and you start flipping the book upside down and you're like, wait, what? Realize that's just an introduction to how crazy what he'll do in Building Stories is. So I don't know, Gary, though, for you, you could pick between, because you're pretty comic literate. I think like for somebody who's not familiar with comics, they may not even like Chris Ware, because he'd be really hard to read if you're not familiar with like the language of comics. And yeah, so beware the Ware, says Frank. But I'd be curious to hear. I don't know. Like some people, it's not their jam, So yeah.
So far, it hasn't been my favorite.
I think it'll crack.
So
it'll crack sometime. You got to get to, if you've done Jimmy Corrigan, bear with it till you get to the Chicago World Fair scene. And the second you get to the Chicago World Fair is when that book just kind of blows apart your brain and is awesome. So,
and I'm excited for that. But at the same time, it sure is hard to get there because I've spent some time and it's a slog.
There's so many good bits though. Like, so you already saw the little Superman and the building bit, right?
Yeah.
Where he like looks out the window and waves at Superman.
Right.
And Superman kind of waves back and then jumps off the building.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like,
it's very depressing though.
I like escapist fiction, and there's very few books that I've read where I was like, well, that's horrifically depressing, that I've enjoyed. And
yeah, so it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not an escapist book. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying that I'm going to cover I Kill Giants soon, which is very somber.
Yeah.
So it's a little out of my normal wheelhouse. It's not kooky and silly and crazy. It's like deals very heavily with like loss and stuff like that. But that one, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that one because I was talking to you about this off air, but like there is a significant thing that happens that makes everything it's not like The Sixth Sense, but where like at the end you're like, oh, he sees dead people and he sees dead people the whole time. But at the same time, it gives meaning to the entire book. Whereas the whole time it's interesting, it's engaging, the characters are written well, but the whole time you're like, what is going on? And then it ties together, but like, I don't want to ruin that experience for the viewer. So I'm almost like, I guess I can just let people decide themselves if they want it ruined. But I also think I don't know. It's interesting because it's hard to say, let me pitch you this book. And I think that's actually why the movie hasn't done very well, is because it's difficult to pitch the story without ruining the story.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie too. They did a really good job.
Yeah, I could definitely.
So.
I'm gonna have to check that out actually because I have not seen it. I am trying to figure out what to do here. This is a really weird part of my book. Okay, getting there. Okay.
Okay. Ox is saying not kooky. She keeps a battle hammer in her purse. Yes, but I mean, like, it's not like an evil interdimensional Einstein attending a funeral with a shotgun and a wife beater kooky. It's like the reason she keeps the battle hammer in her purse is deeply human and PTSD driven. So yeah, I don't know. Frank is asking what movie is this? I blanked out for a second. I Killed Giants is what I was talking about. It's on Amazon Prime. You can watch it for free. I think it's free. Amazon produced it, so I think it's free. Yeah, Ox is saying really loved it. Need to go back for the book too at some point. The book is good. Very almost manga style in the loose nature of the characters and everything, in the line work and whatnot. Anyway, it's good. Which makes sense. I believe. I can't remember.
Oh, I just thought of something. Sorry. My brain is like bouncing from the conversation, just trying to figure out how to resolve this kind of weird transitionary question in the thing. And then I just had like a moment that might work where it's literally pivoting from, let's see, from this last line, which is like, since they're separated from the creator provided all to begin with. And then I have to go from that to, and it's supposed to be somewhat humorous, but it'll make sense more in the context of the story. But it goes to the line, he asked why people wear clothing. And I'm like, that's a weird transition to illustrate. So I was trying to think of something that's a little jarring, but not like too jarring, that represent clothing that kind of maybe goes into like an infographic-y thing. And then I was like, well, maybe a hanger. But then I was like, a hanger with a question mark. And then I was like, wait a minute, the top of a hanger is like a question mark. So that's right when I had that point in my brain was when I went, oh, like, like mid, that was going along with our conversation about I Killed Giants, where I'm like, oh, like, so that's why out of nowhere. Yeah, exactly. And thus the, although I should have said, instead of, oh.
Oh, so, man. Yeah. Now that I said, I don't think that Manhattan Projects could be adapted very well. I really want to see it adapted now, but I want to see it adapted like a Scott Pilgrim style movie.
Yeah, or like they're doing. I really do think what they're doing with Invincible on Netflix, or sorry, on Prime, is a really good example of like how well it sometimes they can transition to animation, and I kind of like the fact that it's not like trying to do a live action version. Like I actually kind of like that it's still drawn. And I think honestly, like the violence might get a little boring. Like I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like ultra violent TV shows. Like I actually found out with Walking Dead after like 6 seasons of it. Like I really enjoyed the first few seasons, and then it just got kind of old where you're just like, I don't know how many times want to watch like people get eaten by zombies. Like I've been watching this for like, or like brutal violence, you know, it just got kind of boring, even though like the comics are really great. But I just like, by the time it got to like the Negan storyline, I was just like kind of checked out, and mainly because, but I was thinking, hey, if that were animated, like I might still be on board. Because like
you can just do more interesting things.
Yeah.
When it's animated, like we were talking earlier, the subway scene,
dude. Like live action, that just would not be the same.
No.
Nor would it maybe even be possible. But it was, yeah, you're right. That's a good example. Or actually, another example is like when the helicopter pulls down and they do still frames.
Yeah,
like they show the helicopter blades to kind of make the beat to flash between still frames, and it's like that's the kind of thing that like in animation looks great, in live action may not work as well, you know. So
people would be so confused in live action.
Yeah,
I bet most people would stand up and wonder if their internet froze or something.
Yeah, so I'd love to see like maybe the team that does Invincible like do that would be amazing, like Manhattan Projects.
Yeah, that'd be great. Ox is asking if we have covered Saga. and it's on my list of things to cover.
Yeah, Fables would be great too. There's a whole bunch.
Yeah. Did Saga wrap? I know that they took a hiatus, and then I never heard whether they came back and did anything with it again after that. It kind of, I feel like it left on kind of like a cliffhanger, and they're like, we're going to take a little break, and then that was a couple years that went by.
I would wonder from the chats, because like for that book, that was one of those books that I really enjoyed, and I read the first graphic novel and then just like stopped following it, even though it was great. There's been a couple experiences like that. With
okay,
books.
James Jarvis is saying Saga is on hiatus. Last I heard, and Ox is saying it's on hiatus and halfway through.
You are on point.
Wasn't it a few years ago that went on hiatus? Anyway.
Fairly likely, I would imagine. Comics are a beast, man. And
Frank is
when you're talking about X-Men, comics are literally a beast, man.
That is true.
That was my dad joke for the night.
Kelsey Grammer. It's not going to show up. Frank is wondering if we've covered Captain Goggles and Mask Woman mini comics. I have mentioned them on the show.
That is true.
We haven't covered them, but there's even newsprint in here. But yeah, I do have. They both have a bunch of projects to work on. BKV has Paper Girls take off. Oh, she's doing Paper Girls. Paper Girls is great. I didn't know that was the same person that was working on that. I didn't make that connection. But yeah, Paper Girls. I have the first trade paperback of that. And then it's kind of like what you were saying, Josh. I got the first trade paperback and then kind of fell off.
Yeah, there's series like that. Like it was I think Sandman is definitely one of those too, where I have, like, I've literally read every graphic novel of the Sandman, but because of the fact that I got into that in high school, I own a couple, like different story arcs, and then I borrowed a bunch, like, so it's like one of those things where I only managed to own so many because it's such a long series, and yeah, it's interesting how that's a good way of putting it, Chris, losing momentum while reading. And I don't even know if it's like that the story loses. But it's an interesting thing that happens with some book series where.
Chris, I'm curious, Carnival Row, is that worth watching? Because what did I do? I listened to a Carnival Row novella. And I've never seen the TV show, but like Audible was giving it away for free, and I needed something in between bigger books. Yeah. So James is saying.
By the way, Audible, where could people check out? What is it?
Oh, if you would like free things from Audible, then you can go to irsagency.com.
That's right. We got a little Audible thing that'll give you a free.
Saga went on hiatus 3 years ago, 2018. And Paper Girls finished. Okay, so I wonder if they're going to jump back on. Interesting. Low. I have not checked out Low, but I have heard incredible things about Low.
For like 2 seconds, because I was kind of in the zone cartooning as well. When you said Low, I thought you were doing like pulling a straight Shakespearean transitionary phrase, being like, Low. Hark, like, lo, mine eyes have read Saga. Like, anyway, sorry.
I'll tell you one that is really good that I never finished, but I have original art from it. Is Rumble? Have you heard of Rumble?
Mm-mm.
Let me show you this page. Rumble is great. Rumble is really cool. Let me go to full camera here. Nope, full camera. So this is my Rumble page.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's this character is like an ancient warrior that his soul was he's a disembodied soul that is now inhabiting this scarecrow. So if you could imagine like a giant Viking warrior, but he's got this scarecrow body. It is so good. And he's fighting these ancient anthropomorphized ideas like fire, or whatever. But it's like the ancients used to do. They would give it a personality or whatever. But the fire god is like my favorite because when he's on fire, he's this huge giant personified flame that's fighting. But when they put him out, he's just this tiny little thing, and he's kind of squeaky and kind of bounces around and is totally helpless until he lights on fire again. Anyway, it's a great comic. I don't know what happened with it. I kind of fell off, but the first volume was awesome.
I love it.
The sword is thunder. There is something about this sword that's significant in the Rumble comic. This is the problem.
Like the name because it makes me think there's going to be wrestling coming up or something.
Right. Yeah. This is the problem with this show is we could do 2 of these a day for years. And it's something to be really, really awesome stuff.
But I think that's so good because I often will hear, especially like new cartoonists or like people who are just getting into graphic novels or comics, seeking recommendations, not, and that's good. But it's like, it's interesting because like once you start cracking it open, like keep in mind, like a lot of the stuff we've been talking about at the beginning of this is like mostly like image stuff. But it's like you crack it open, you have like a whole world of fanographic stuff. You crack it open, you have a whole world of drawn and quarterly stuff. You have Archaea. You have like all these different houses of publishers, Marcosia. Like there's endless indie publishers in comics that and so many good ones. Like there's good mainstream ones. There's good there's a lot of good comics out there is what I'm getting at. And,
right.
And like, so I love the fact that we get to hopefully introduce people to those too. I don't know why, but I'm hearing a bunch of like crazy slapback.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me turn you down, or if we're still getting some.
Okay, cool. But yeah, like, so I think that's one of the cool things about the show,
Is that better?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. I think I can put headphones on if I need to, but
no worries.
Not as comfortable. Oh man.
So yeah, so that like I don't know, I think that's a pretty cool byproduct of the show is like being able to kind of introduce people to like I said, when I was going through my shelf, I was just like, oh, a lot of these are like no brainers, like everybody's read this. And I'm sure like even with Corey, like, like you're probably like, this is like, a lot of people have probably read this, but it's like surprisingly, like I've barely read any of the books you've brought, I think the only one is like maybe The Amazing Screw-On Head,
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, that's kind of amazing, but they're all really cool. And they're all books I would like to read. And so I think that's just a really cool thing about like discovery in books. And, hopefully people who like watch the IRS will also chime in with like their own book reviews and recommendations and stuff,
Yeah.
Great.
I actually hope it doesn't become like just us. I'd like other people to.
Yeah.
We had Gary on, which was awesome. I had never heard of that book, and it was phenomenal.
Oh, dude. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Definitely check out that Gary's brilliant indie review of Tardy's World War II book. It's so good. It's so cool and compelling, and he did a really good job of like sort of introducing it and showing it too.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay,
that's really good. I'm going to add a layer, throw some Radial gradients down.
All right. Hop out for another second, but I'm glad I came up with that solution. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I think it will. Okay, the next.
I don't know if I like that. What if we turn it down? Be subtle. Ready?
We are definitely interested in a review of Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters, Gary, and you have I think we have pretty much an open door policy with you, so let us know when you want to do it, and we'll work you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be a really good one too, because just such beautiful work. So, okay, I'll be back in like 2 seconds. I think I got to think too about this.
Okay.
Because the next thing is going to say, why of all the animals do humans hide their nakedness? And I remember when I read this, like this is in the book, but I still think of all biblical kind of what is it called, apologetics. Like that is one of the most compelling is people wearing clothes. Like,
yeah,
it is like a hugely weird thing. It does have advantages, I think, but does it? I don't know. It's interesting. It's just that's a fascinating.
I was thinking about this the other day. There are cultures where they wear almost nothing, but they'll throw like a loincloth on, and that serves zero functional purpose.
Yeah, there's usually there is hardly. I can't think of a culture where it's like there's no covering of some kind. It doesn't. It could be covering something that like we wouldn't cover, but right. It's like, but it's still like there's always something covered where it's inappropriate to not show, and I just I find that really interesting even now. But at the time I found that really compelling as like something I hadn't honestly thought deeply about, having grown up in like religious circles and stuff, because they don't really focus on that one when they're debating evolution most of the time. And yeah. And I'm a person who actually thinks like evolution is likely the way that we got here, but it's just interesting to me, just it's really compelling. Like we're the only, like you don't see other animals like wearing clothes, and I just find that really interesting.
Right.
I mean, protection clothes makes sense, but like the literal hiding clothes is interesting. So I'm trying to. But it's a weird thing to have to illustrate in a book and like try to make it interesting. So I'm like, yeah. So the thing I have to figure out is like, why of all the animals do humans hide their nakedness? Like, I gotta somehow write that and then think of a way to do that that doesn't look like a chick tract. This whole section, my goal is to like avoid being a chick tract because it's not the intent. And I really would hate it if like somebody bought this and felt like crap, I got swindled and it's just a chick tract, you know? So that's my goal, is like avoid that like the plague. I don't know how.
I want, I'll tell you what I want. I want you to like totally lean into the chick tract and make everybody like unusually ripped.
That's true. Or just have the kid who just like for some reason knows better than their parents, and like they're like, yeah. Mom, Dad, why do you guys go out and smoke marijuana? Well, and yet you say you like Jesus, and it's like, oh well, smoking marijuana is fine, son, and it's like, but it's not. And then it goes into the book where like one guy like in high school smokes a joint once, and then from that activity, like they end up in a hellscape, like, and a car crashes into him that's driven by a demon, and then it's like, you know, got like different chapter references with asterisks like throughout the entire thing. I don't know. There is like a charm to those to those comics, but. How do I avoid that? Okay, I'll be right back in a second, though. I'm going to think about that for 2 seconds. Okay.
I'll tell you that. No, go ahead. I'm talking to everybody else. Good. That, for some reason, sparked more conversation than anything else. We're talking about all kinds of interesting things, and then all of a sudden, Josh says genitals, and like, we just had like an entire explosion of thought in the chat, which I think is great. So, Frank says, I'm going to clip this section. Josh's 2 stories, volume 2. Yeah, and Adam, the Naked Ape. There's some weird stuff in there. I don't know. It's some interesting stuff. I don't know. I don't have very strong opinions about it. But yeah, I'm curious what comics I don't know about that I should know about, because you guys are like. Also, I don't know if Kayla is still here, but I know she was starting to get into reading comics, so I'm curious on what she's read recently. So yeah, did you just turned on a?
Oh, I did not mean to. Thank you for turning that off. Although we appreciate that comment. You probably know the shortcut I was doing. It was just to move the page, but
no, I do that all the time. So it's really weird because the space bar moves the page, but also for some reason in StreamYard, the space bar activates whatever was recently clicked on.
Convenient, except when you're doing Photoshop and you're on the wrong window.
Right.
I hope like Command Z doesn't do anything crazy one of these days. It's just gonna like open like a portal to like all the different streams online.
All of a sudden
it's like, what did I do? You hit Command Z. How dare you?
That would be like an incredible premise for a comic. Here's a free comic idea for whoever's watching. There's all this live streaming, right? And then there's that. Oh, what's that? Josh, what's the concept where we're simulation? Is it simulation theory?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, okay. The neat thing is this. Okay.
No, hold on.
Finish your thought.
Yeah. Don't go off on a tangent.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I think it's simulation theory, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So mix in like live streaming with simulation theory and string theory in that. Okay. So if you don't know what simulation theory is, it's the fact that like, Pong was only a few years ago, right? Within my lifetime, we went from like pixels that were giant and graphics that obviously looked like a pixel to now we're like, trying to recreate Carrie Fisher in Star Wars and it's almost there. It's a little bit weird, right? And so that's happened in 40 years. Given like hundreds of years or thousands of years, the theory is that, there's no way that we wouldn't come up with something that is just completely photorealistic, a Ready Player One type of situation or a Matrix, right? And then the theory is that it's mathematically unlikely that we are the original reality. So anyway, I think it would be interesting to mix a story where you go live, and when you are broadcasting live, it actually creates, a string in, or an alternate timeline, or you're actually tapping into another dimension or whatever, because you get into like interdimensionality.
I just remember the term for it. It's the singularity. I think like where technology, I was trying to remember the term, but it's the singularity is like the idea. So you're right. Like it's on the theory, but the idea is like at some point we reach a singularity where our programming has actually gotten to the point where we've kind of automated things to where they start actually taking control of themselves. There's a few versions of it, but the idea of the singularity could be like that you somehow unlock the fact that we're all in a simulation, right, or that you open the portal to some other dimension, or you suddenly find the programmer, like, which, yeah. Anyhow, sorry. Singularity. Yeah, sure. I was trying to remember that word. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. What was you got really excited there for?
Oh, yeah. So the excited part was on I love the idea of a live stream that somehow opens another dimension, or suddenly creates like this, like you're live streaming and you realize like there's like all these strings like connecting all the live streams, and they're actually like the strings of existence or something. That would be hilarious.
Wouldn't it be fascinating if when we live stream, we actually create like a perfect copy of ourselves?
Yeah.
That lives in that live stream, and when
dies.
we turn the live stream off, they don't die, but they exist in nothing. And so we're just like torturing copies of ourselves by having them spend eternity in like a non-environment.
I love it. Or it could be like the teleportation thing where it's like, you know, somebody posited once, like in Star Trek, like every time that they're beaming to a different place, like they're literally being murdered. like they're basically just copying their genetic code, including their memories, and just recreating that on a different planet and then murdering the old one. it's a crazy idea.
It's the Mahler twins.
Yeah, totally. Totally is. But it's also an ethical quandary. Like there's an old ethics thing that has existed since like Blade Runner, right? Where it's like the idea of like, would it be ethical? Like the oldest version of it that I've heard was like the dream scenario, where it's like if every time you fell asleep, like you actually created a copy of yourself that had your memories and everything, and then you literally murder yourself and you wake up with no memory of that, but you're yourself. It's like, is that murder? Like it's an old one, an old quandary. But that's the thing that I got all excited about was so that book series, Off to Be the Wizard, which I think is like I highly recommend to everyone. Like it is so funny. It's one of my favorite like humor books. It's super stupid, but like in all the right ways.
Skip the dragon one.
What's up?
Skip the dragon one. The rest of them are gold.
Yeah, they are so gold. But the premise is very similar, where it's like the idea is like this guy has a boring job where he does like data entry. And one time, and I love that it's like, it's not this mysterious like epic program. He just finds a Microsoft like Word file that if he changes lines in it, like, or adds text, like it changes the nature of reality. And so he kind of finds like this secret file that's like got the code of existence in it. And then the book kind of moves from there, but it's, you know, to where I'll give a little bit away because I think this is given away in like the first chapter. So it's, right. But I will say it's a bit of a spoiler, but it's not going to ruin the book. But basically, he ends up like manipulating the code and making himself have a ton of money, which like the feds notice and the IRS notices, like not the IRS, the Indie Review Show, but the actual IRS, and like come at him like with all force because they realize like there's somebody who somehow is like generating a bunch of income they didn't earn.
Right.
And it just appeared, and like so they want to know about it. So they kind of start chasing him down. He decides, I'm gonna escape to like where's a place where I could like manipulate reality and like people wouldn't think it was strange, like it wouldn't put off any red flags. And he's like, I know, I'll go back to medieval England and pretend to be a wizard. Cause like people aren't gonna like bat an eye then. Like, you know, they believe in wizards and magic and like have like witch hunts and stuff. So I'll go back there. And when he goes back, he actually ends up meeting like a whole grip of other people who had the same idea. And so like all these wizards in history are actually just people who found the same file and are manipulating the code. And it becomes this whole story of like these wizards and how they kind of have built their own society and stuff. So that's, I know it's like, feels like a spoiler alert kind of thing, but it literally like, that's like the first chapter. And then it just goes from there to like this absurd humor and just so much fun. You're right. The dragon one's the weakest, although I still think it's worth the read because, you know, but for like plot points for later books, but it's still, it's so good.
Well, even in later books, the author goes, yeah, there was, you know, this happened, but like, you know, there was no stakes and no reason to care about that stuff. So we're not going to, you know, like he even realizes, he even pokes fun at himself and says, like, that was dumb.
Dude, but Scott Mayer, one of my favorite writers, he has a couple books too that are really good. Other than that, but it's just a really good, fun series, and a cartoonist who's found success as a novelist, which I think is something we should all encourage.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what that reminded me of, was like the premise of that, which is a fun premise, you know.
Yep, that's a good book. I like those books. They're pretty entertaining. Actually, you made a joke recently on Facebook
Yes.
from that book, and and Malia got the reference, and she was very excited. She's like, I know that reference.
Well, what was funny was I actually was considering responding because Malia's awesome. But she was like, am I one of the cool people now? And I was like, no, you're just being dragged down to like our nerddom. Like, right. It's like, I'm sorry, but no, like that's
were
like
cool before you married.
That's like the nerdiest reference ever. And I'm so proud that she knows that, but it is not a cool one. It's like just being dragged down to the uncool awesomeness. But I think that's cool. But what I think is cool is probably not cool.
So some person is saying you guys are writing a comic book as you speak. I literally think this is like how 80% of all good media is created. Mm-hmm. Is just people being like, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if...
Oh, especially comedy rooms, man. Like, yeah, it's all spitballing and fun. Let's see. Okay, why of all the... Okay, now back to this weird, why do humans hide their nakedness thing? Okay, so why? Okay.
I am...
Yeah, what are you working on? I don't know if you've mentioned that. I mean, people follow our stuff right now, but if they don't, what are you?
Yeah, I am building an airship for a music video that somebody hired me to do. And I made it in, let's see, I made it in Sketchbook, and then, what is the other one?
Oh my gosh, Adobe I'm blanking out with the watercolors, yes.
Yeah, Adobe Fresco. And it's like not porting over as well as I would like it to. So I'm having to like copy and paste sections of each one of these over so that for some reason it's like linking like the whole layer. Anyway, so I've set up a macro. If anybody wants to get super nerdy into my process, I have a button that I'm pushing that runs through a series of steps that cuts, copies, and pastes all this stuff back into a new layer so it'll act like a normal layer. It's horrifically boring and a giant waste of time. I shouldn't have to do, but Adobe, that's what you get when you use experimental beta software that they haven't figured out yet.
Corey, is it a steampunk band? That was
It is not. It is not, though the video is very steampunk. It's Mary Redmond, and she has a beautiful voice. Really cool band. Anyway, so yeah, that's what it is. And this is kind of just a really weird, all right, thinking and talking at the same time. A really weird animation where I have foxes as air pirates that are dropping bombs on the band who are driving through like a Mad Max post-apocalyptic desert in a converted Cadillac stage.
Yeah. And the cool thing about this client that Corey's talked about on a lot of our streams and stuff is that I'm still getting slapback, by the way, but it's like one of those awesome cases where the client, like Corey, just kind of created something that he would want to make that would be the cool thing for, like, he just kind of made the call, like, this is what this video should be. And then the client's like, yes, 100%. And that's how you get awesome, amazing, steampunky crazy imaginative music videos is by letting the artist actually do what the artist wants to do. So I think that's, I don't know, I think that's really cool because like just from the animatic that Corey's shown, like it's like he's laid out a lot of stuff that he'd want to do anyway, which is awesome. I think.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Yeah, it is. And I was very impressed. A lot of clients, they don't understand the power of kind of just weird creativity.
Yeah.
And so
Power
they're
of
like,
yes.
yeah. And it's like, no, that's not what the lyrics say. And I'm like, well, you know. But she was like, oh, this sounds great. She actually said, I love that you're making it edgy. I was like, oh, cool.
It's good.
So, yeah.
Well, all of my favorite music videos, like one of my favorite music videos of all time, I think I shared it with you, Corey, but it's like Rabbit in Your Headlights by Uncle. And it's got like Tom York from Radiohead on it and DJ Shadow, which is like a good combination. But like the song is literally just a guy walking through a tunnel on a freeway, just getting hit by cars like nonstop.
Yeah.
And then has like the reveal at the end that he like holds still and the car crushes rather than him. So you watch him get beat up and just like, it's brutal, but then, and it's like, he seems like a crazy guy just talking to himself and stuff like that. But at the very end, like he just stands firm instead of getting knocked over by the cars and the car just folds like around him. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Stunning music video, but like just kind of took like one line and just played with it, where it was like the I'm a rabbit in your headlights, and then just kind of went crazy with it. It looks really so I think like that's the best music videos. Like Beastie Boys music videos are great examples too, where it's like they'll just, you know, like Sabotage, it's just like these guys just in a 1970s action film. Like that fits that song so well, but it's like so not the lyrics.
Right.
But it's just got the vibe of the song. You know, you can tell like the director just went wild with it, and then like the band was smart enough to be like, yeah, let's do that. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah. And then also, I mean, for animated, it's like, you know, you have all the Smashing Pumpkins videos back in the day too. So it's smart.
Or the Todd McFarlane one.
Oh, dude, for
Freak on a Leash.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the one he did for, didn't he do Pearl Jam one too? Like around the same time?
Maybe, probably. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm aware of that one. I got to look that up. I'm pretty sure. Frank is asking if there are any bugs in this music video, and it depends on if you consider caterpillars and butterflies bugs.
Yep. Do the evolution. I think was it in? Yep. Do the evolution. It's so good. I like that one more than the corn one because I like Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Like which makes me really unpopular among like, well, I mean, that's like one of those like a lot of punks like kind of hate Pearl Jam, but I still think they're great. So
yeah.
Yeah.
The corn one, I haven't seen the other one. The corn one is just amazing. It just like it was incredible animation for its day.
Yeah, they feel like all the McFarlane ones feel like they took like the heavy metal animated thing and just were like, we're gonna do that, but like with like modern technology. That's so good.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and I can't like personally I cannot stand Korn, but it's like I love that video. I totally love that video. It's a good one.
I never really listened to Korn, but I have.
It's just that new metal thing makes me like cringe, but it's probably the area I grew up in too, where it's like it was really popular in the Antelope Valley.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But those videos are so cool. Like the animation's really cool. Do the evolution's cool too. It's like it's right up your alleyway. It's very dystopian and like
yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Oh yeah, and then there's like every Tool music video in the 90s was like stop motion. I can't remember which member, but it's one of the members of the band actually was like a VFX guy.
Oh, that's cool.
So he'd do like these weird like creatures that are like, you know, it's like almost felt like horror movies, but like done with like these abstract figures that would like move and usually have like weird things with teeth and stuff, but it's like it's all stop motion that the band member himself made, which is really
cool. Only thing that I've seen of that is they played one of them on a Beavis and Butthead episode that I watched.
Nice. I miss Beavis and Butthead. That was a great show. Like, I know it's stupid and terribly stupid, but it's like Mike Judge is I don't know. I think he's like I still need to see. I've heard he's done some documentary series, like one on like outlaw country and then the other on like funk. And I've heard they're really good. But I love Mike Judge's stuff, like Office Space, Idiocracy, like just even King of the Hill is like pretty well made, like just really awesome.
Yep.
Someone's been making Tool videos of songs they didn't make videos of. I don't understand that comment.
It sounds like there's somebody out there that's like anything that they didn't do, they're doing it now.
Oh, got it. Yeah, it's totally true.
All right, let's do. This is the part of animation that is the least glamorous and most boring. I'm literally just taking pieces that I've already drawn and just repurposing them,
splicing and making the movable, like it's also like kind of a puzzle kind of moment with animation where you're kind of, especially it's a very like limited animation thing where it's like you're kind of thinking like, where are the joints, where are all the breaks, and, and actually it's in traditional too, but it's like, you know, like if I'm doing this background, what on this background is going to be like the moving part that I need to separate, or you know, like in this case a ship, like is that sail going to move and how's it going to move and how can I separate it so I can move it? That's true. It's also mind bending, like going through it, because it's tedious, but you also, if you get it wrong, then like when you're in the animation stage, you're kind of kicking yourself like, oh crap, I got to go back into that file and like
Thunder Chop. Sorry.
I love it.
Yeah, Thunder Chop is the sword from Rumble.
That is okay, that makes me really interested in
It's such a good name for a sword. Thunder Chop.
It just makes me think of 80s cartoons. It makes me really want to check it out. Yeah. So good. Okay, did I just put okay, that looks like 3 question marks, but it's not. Okay, good.
I think I'm trying to think of like depressions in the fabric of the sail, but the sail moves. I think if I put the shadows as a layer and then mask them with the sail, that should work. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Sometimes we say things out loud so that they make sense to us because my head is dumb. All right. So let's do this one time.
You know what? I'm going to make this tall and thin. It's okay. It's funny. When we do these streams, Corey and I will switch from conversations to like these talking to ourselves, like to figure out like an art problem. And like, actually I will say, like, for anybody watching this, like if you've been to like art school or like taken an art class in college, like that's usually what it's like when you're in a room full of other classmates where you're just like, you know, kind of just chatting away, and then out of nowhere somebody's like, the wrist wouldn't move like that or something, you know, like that's like what? But in, you know, like among artists, that's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. His sidekick even mentions he's the coolest for naming it that. Is that true?
It's been a long time. I believe it's true because that comic is awesome. But it has been a long time since I have read it.
in a while. I'm just gonna
try to get this demonetized.
Exactly.
There we go.
All
I'm just
right.
going to do a little bit of a shadow.
Why of all the animals do humans hide their nakedness? This is a weird part of this book. Okay. Some crazy business here. All right. I was trying to avoid the obvious here, but like I think it just calls for like the ladder. I just got to do, the evolutionary ladder.
Oh yeah.
It just has to happen for this panel. It's the obvious, and I was like thinking of avoiding it. I think I even mentioned it the last time I was working on the page before it as something I would want to avoid. But sometimes you just got to go with what works, and it has to happen. Every once in a while, man, you got to have that I Heart New York. Not that that's what this is, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like there's times where that is the only thing. I might change my mind, but I doubt it. I think it needs to happen. So how is the ship coming along? 100% Frank, that's where I'm heading. It's going to be a person. I can't do a full-out animal with a shirt yet because there's a bit after this. I haven't really mentioned this a lot when I talk about this book because it is about like faith and mental illness. And so I think a lot of people imagine it as like this slog or like a really heavy thing. But it is imbued with a lot of humor throughout. There's levity to the, even though the topics are heavy, there is humor and levity, I think. I don't know. Corey, is that overplaying it?
It's dark humor because like every time little Josh invents a game on the playground, I'm like, oh, he's having so much fun. I wonder how someone is going to destroy this for him.
Yes, that's true.
So there's that. But the games are fun.
But yeah, I think there's some humor even in the more serious stuff as an adult. Like there's definitely some tongue-in-cheek moments. Because otherwise it's like I feel like when you're writing something that's very serious, especially first person, you kind of have to keep in mind like Catcher in the Rye, right, which is kind of a heavy slog too. It's like still filled with a lot of bits and jokes from Holden Caulfield. Otherwise it would be really hard. And as an adult, it's really hard to read because you just kind of feel like kicking him. Because he's every teenager, but it's like I said, I think you have to have a little levity in there. Hamlet's a good example too, where it's like Hamlet would be a drag without like those little lightning scenes.
Hamlet is brilliant the way they do those. I think one of my favorite things, and this is probably just because I'm really immature, my favorite things about Shakespeare is like the innuendo that most people don't get.
Oh my gosh. Here's the thing that cracked me up. As a book nerd in high school, surrounded by people who did not like books, and this is like predating Harry Potter, you guys. For anybody of a like younger generation, they will never know what it was like to be a person who liked books in high school pre-Harry Potter. It might have reverted back, but there's just a point where like if you really like books and you took an English class, you'd be taking it with like some moron who probably grew up to be like a literary smart person, but like at the time you'd have to deal with like the moron who's just like when you're reading a book in class or something and they go, did it? They're like, oh, they said did it. And you're like, but they were doing that with Shakespeare. And the funny thing was they were doing that and we were reading a section from Taming of the Shrew. And it's like, no, dude, like read one line further where they're actually going to make like a straight up just joke about poop. And then like about a paragraph later, they're going to make a sex joke. And like, but they're trying to make it like funny by the part where it says, oh, they did it. And it's like, not talking about that, but like a sentence later, there's like a really innuendo filled pervy joke, and it go right over their heads. It was the most frustrating thing in high school, where you're like, no, just wait. There are poop jokes in here.
Yeah.
like
it's coming. Don't ruin it.
Don't worry, you don't have to throw them in like they're in there, and like throwing them in, you're gonna miss the really good ones, you know. Like Taming of the Shrew is one of the sauciest stories. There's a lot of them, but or like well, there's a lot of that in Much Ado About Nothing too, where it's like,
oh yeah,
you know, yeah,
Othello,
dude,
all kinds of good stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, Othello is like about that, but. Anyway, yeah.
We're just welcome to the Shakespeare cast. We are
right. We'll just lecture everyone on Shakespeare, and everyone will love it. I'm sure everyone just came for the comics, stay for the Shakespeare. I think that's how that works.
100%
here.
So Romeo and Juliet does not have poop jokes, but man, it has sex jokes all over it. Like.
Does
that is a lewd yeah,
they really come out when Claire Danes delivers the lines.
Yep.
She does a great job.
The casting in that is like brilliant. Like the casting in the Baz Luhrmann one, it's
so good.
It's one of the only ones that was it's been depicted a lot of times. And it's one of the few where they actually got their ages right. Like they seem more like the age they should be, because it's not supposed to be like an old love. Like it's not even. I don't know. I don't even read it as like a true love story. It's more like a infatuated teenagers story. You know?
Yeah, 100%. It is. It's just. It literally is just like, hey, you know how teenagers take things way too seriously and they think the end of the world is, what if we did a story about that? That's what it is.
100%.
All right. Is this going to work?
Yeah, Frank was saying they're dumb teens, right? Yeah, pretty much. Although it's, it's pretty and it's beautiful, and it is about like the, two star-crossed lovers who are, but and it's a tale of woe, all that fun stuff. But at the same time, it's I also really like Stoppard and what he did with it. It's funny. My wife can't stand that movie though.
I don't know.
Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's good. It's good. It's a riff on. It's written by one of my favorite writers. This is where we're getting into like weird nerdy, like. English major type stuff. But it's like, there's this book called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And there's a brilliant movie of it with Tim Roth. That's one of his first roles.
Yeah. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are the two friends that Hamlet sends off to their death.
Yes.
And then somebody wrote a comedy about like their ghosts, right?
Well, no, it's like, so the bit is it's like these two side characters in one of the most known plays known to man. And this guy decided to do a book that was sort of like mixing Waiting for Godot, which is like a classic play about two guys on stage that are waiting for Godot. And it's a metaphor for, like people waiting for God. And then he's not showing up. Right. So it's a very like, a very like saucy play, but it's like it's all about these people killing time, just waiting, and then like nothing ever happens, right? Mm-hmm. And he decided, well, what if it was like these two ancillary characters that are assigned to death, like they know that like they're a part of Hamlet and they're gonna die, and like so like regardless, but they're also just kind of waiting around to fill their roles in this part of Hamlet, you know, as these goofy characters. So it's pretty much them, like you see their scenes in Hamlet, and then you see all the backstory outside of their scenes. And a lot of the backstory is them just doing like idiotic things, like playing a game of questions where they're like on a tennis court, just kind of throwing questions at each other, and like a lot of really like funny wordplay. But the thing I like about Tom Stoppard is he's the king of just like weird, funny wordplay. And like Shakespeare in Love was like a script written by him where it's just about William Shakespeare falling in love and writing Romeo and Juliet and stuff. And it's really good. Really pretty excellent story. So, but a lot of like wordplay and like jokes. Yeah. So
I'll have to check it out sometime.
It's like Lion King 1.5. They were there the whole time. Well, it's just funny. It's funny too because they keep talking about feeling like they're doomed to like a sealed fate, and it's like they are. So it's just, I don't know. It's good. I like it. It's a good example of like Tim Roth being a rad dude outside of like Reservoir Dogs or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So this last panel, this is for you, Frank. This is going to be the dude like, oh no, but he's not going to be wearing clothes yet. But he's just going to be like, oh no,
I'm naked. All right.
Should do it in like a Spumco way. No, that wasn't very Spumco. I want better. Start looser with the full figure. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, it's funny that we keep like with live streams. One of the things I love is like being able to kind of hang out, do art. The thing that's really hard to get the flow of for me is like talking and drawing.
Yeah.
The only advantage I have in that scenario is I am a person who like rarely stops talking.
I can talk and draw. I cannot talk and construct.
Yes, it's hard.
So whenever I'm like problem solving, I'll be doing something like right now, it's mindless. I'm literally just rotating layers so that they fit. But oftentimes I'll like in the middle of a sentence need to think like, okay, now how is this going to rotate, or how is this going to move, or where's the joint? Where's the seam? How am I going to cover the seam? And like in the middle of my own sentence, I'll just interrupt myself with this long pause. I'm sure it's fantastic to listen to.
It is.
I'm doing it.
It's awesome. So I am curious too if anyone in the chat is working on stuff themselves.
Yes.
And if so, what are you guys working on? And how are your personal projects going? So
and then there's that awkward pause when you realize they're not going to talk to you.
Oh, they will.
And there's like a 20-second delay. No, but they're going to talk, but they're not going to like respond verbally. I always ask those questions and I'm like, now they're thinking about it. Now they're typing it. it's like, dang it. I wish we were just all hanging out.
I agree. I concur. I think it's a funny thing, like the live streaming thing. The first time that I like did like one of my own like live streams, I remember just feeling like no one's going to show up. This is going to be really boring. And then like people showed up and I was like, okay, this is weird. Now I got to talk, but it's like, it's a weird thing. And then I've gotten a little more used to it. Haven't done them for a little bit, but it definitely is different when you're doing it with somebody else. It's a little bit easier because you have like, it's almost like you have a wingman to kind of like keep the flow of the conversation and stuff. Adam was saying he's making progress writing. Adam's working on like a big epic, which is pretty exciting. Gary is closing in on a first draft for DVSM, Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, 1979 script, which is going to be fun to see the costuming in that. I hope you have a character who is like the late 70s Elvis, because I used to dislike late 70s Elvis, and now I think he's my favorite Elvis. Is that weird? I think you reach an age. I don't know. I personally think music nerds reach an age where, like, at first you're like, yeah, old school Elvis, Hound Dog, all of that. That's pretty great. It's kind of like the birth of a lot of rock and roll. But like the later stuff, I don't know. It's kind of a weird old man. Then you hit this age where you're just like, I don't know, man. The rhinestones, the corniness in the ghetto.
The
ghetto.
I'm not a music nerd, so I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not.
I think you're. I think deep down, Corey, I think
I'm not.
You would get into later Elvis.
I'm not embarrassed to claim music nerd. I just, whenever people start talking about music, I'm like, I'm so bored.
I get it.
I just don't care. I want to listen to it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, but just like, so aesthetically, late 70s Elvis, like just the corniness and the kitsch, like the fact that there's like religious candles with Elvis with like a halo over him, like doing I don't know. I love it more and more the older I get. Frank said I have In the Ghetto on my laptop. I love it. It's one of the best Elvis songs ever. It's a very over the top. It's got like this clangy. Well, I don't know. Have you heard In the Ghetto, Corey? It's so bad. It's so bad. It's like something you should hear. It's so bad.
If I'm being honest, I think Uncle Jesse ruined Elvis for me, because he's always talking about it.
I love that. Makes sense.
And I was always just like, ugh, shut up about that.
Oh, it's terrible. But okay, so In the Ghetto is like it's the song that has just this terrible clangy guitar line, right? That's really upbeat. But then it's Elvis singing this really sad song about like how, there's a child out in the ghetto somewhere and they're starving and his mom's going to cry. And it's like this song that's supposed to be like, this deep-hearted, like We Are the World type song that makes you feel the pain of the ghetto.
Yeah.
But it comes across as like the corniest. It's hard to explain. Like there's a chorus line. So he's like talking about, and his mama cries in the ghetto. And there's a backup chorus. It is like the best. It's terrible, but great. And it's like, I don't know. It's like Suspicious Minds, all of that stuff from that era where it's like, it's just so over the top. And like, I used to hate it. And then I just reached this age where I like, it's kind of like the age where you like start realizing like, I don't even want to go to like Vegas to gamble, but I would totally love doing a trip to Vegas just to look at like corny, terrible signage, like from Vegas, like throughout the years, because there's something about kitsch that's just super great. And
that's the first thing that you said that got me interested. I'd be down, because I love vintage neon signage.
Yeah.
I love it. It is so bizarre.
That's the thing about late Elvis that I think you dig, is it's like that personified just as like music.
Oh man.
So yeah. Anyhow.
I've been into some different music lately. You and I were talking about baby metal a little while ago, and I've just
my sister-in-law is obsessed with baby metal, or was for a bit.
Yeah, it's funny. They're great.
Yeah, it's kind of similar thing. Like I would say the appeal of baby metal is very similar, where it's really over the top.
No, but I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
I don't ironically enjoy it. Like I really enjoy it, and I hate most Elvis stuff.
Yeah,
like I hate the sound of it. It's grating to me.
Yeah.
Ox is saying, I think it's more fascinating to find something that turns Corey off from a discussion. I'll tell you a horrible story. Some of the coolest people I know were on a stream. It's like, who was it? It was Josh and Jim Lujan and Paul Pate and like all these people. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to hang out with these guys. Then everyone started talking about music history, and I was like, this is lame. I was so bored and so disappointed that we didn't talk about something interesting. And I was glad everybody was having a good time, but I was like, this is like when I get together with a bunch of people that I really enjoy and they start discussing football or something. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I could understand if music's not your jam. So I get that way about certain topics. Like they I don't know. Most I have like a point of entry to. Sports is definitely like that, where I just have trouble accessing it or connecting to it.
Here's another example. I went to hang out with there's like a group of guys in the neighborhood that like we go get dinner or milkshake or whatever, and we just got to hang out. And I was like, oh cool, we're gonna get the neighborhood guys together to hang out. I was excited about it, and so we did, and everybody started hanging out. And I was like, ah, cool. So we're at like Five Guys or something, and yeah, I don't think any of them are going to watch this show, so I'll say it. They all started talking about the best places to pick huckleberries, which is a thing around here. It's like
you're trying to like pivot them to like, like huckleberries. Speaking of that, like there's a really interesting book, Huckleberry Finn. Let's talk about no. Like we're talking about picking huckleberries.
And then they started talking about their gardens, and they started talking about the different berries that they're growing in their gardens, and like the salinity of the soil and the pH balance of the soil and like rotational crops. And I'm just like trying really, really hard not to be very angry that I wasted an evening listening to people talk about their garden when I could have been doing literally anything else. I'm that guy that's like, if you're not talking about something interesting, I don't even want to talk to you. I will unabashedly own that.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm also like socially aware enough to not be like a jerk about it and not like be like, no, let's talk about something I want to talk about. So I was like, I looked around. Everybody is legitimately enjoying this conversation. So I was
about
like,
huckleberries, though, I don't understand that. Dude. But that must be, maybe that's, I don't know. I guess
I live in an agrarian area.
That's cool.
And it's great.
I might just like, sometimes when I find myself in a scenario like that, though, I'll just like ask weird questions because I'm like, okay, so the only thing interesting I could find in that I would want to know is like, okay, how do you go about picking these? And then why do you pick huckleberries? What is the compulsion to do it? Like, why is that interesting to you?
But see, the thing is,
but then it's hard to do that without sounding pretentious,
No, I know the answer. I know the answer because I've had this discussion more than once. The reason
okay, so this is a common topic up there.
No, it's like, yeah, it's something people do for fun.
Oh my gosh.
So
I like Frank's pivot here too. Huckleberry Hound and Huckleberry Finn. That's a good way.
Yeah, and some person is accurate. Corey is friends with the entire cast of a Mark Twain book. Yep.
That's true.
These guys are great. They're awesome. But like it's a level of interest and abilities that are just outside of my experience. Like I have a really good friend who's a cool guy. And I was like driving by and I see sparks flying out of his driveway behind his car. I'm like, okay, I'm going to check that out. So I get out of the car and I walk up there, and he is welding stuff to his trailer. And I'm like, dude, I didn't know you could weld. And he's like, yeah, I'm teaching myself how to weld. And I'm like, where did you get the metal? And he's like, oh, somebody on Facebook Marketplace gave away like a bunch of bed frames. And so I'm cutting up these bed frames and building this part of my trailer. And it's like, I live in a place where and like, I've always been weird for just like building stuff that like, I don't know how to build.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about my kayak earlier, but like, I live in a neighborhood where it's not uncommon to like drive by and see somebody cutting up bed frames and teaching themselves how to weld so that they can like carry their snowmobile better on this homemade trailer that they're making out of the back end of a truck.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting place. I like it. It's fun.
I don't know. I think there's something cool about that, but also, yeah, I could definitely relate to that because that would be a little hard to kind of to understand, or like it is always hard. Yeah, for me, I think partially, I've talked about this before, but it's like I think I'm partially autistic.
Yeah,
and I don't do that as like feel sorry for me kind of card or anything. It's just
right.
Because one of the things that I've found is I just usually wind up, whether consciously or not, like directing a conversation specifically to like one or two points of interest that I have, and generally not varying outside of that, which is like a very super autistic trait. So it's like if I'm really excited about like anything, like it'll be like a specific thing, but it's like I definitely generally try. It's almost, but in a weird way, it's like it's not even conscious. Like I just end up doing that like almost every conversation, which is interesting. Yeah, and I didn't even know that was like a thing about autism until like my kid had it, and then I read more about it and was like, oh especially in conversational habits, like I am like 100% there, So it's interesting. Yeah, it's been fascinating to kind of learn about. But yeah, so for me, like I relate 100% to that, because if I'm like not interested in something somebody's talking about, I either usually gear the conversation away, or like I have trouble. I have trouble maintaining interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Frank is asking, did you all go rafting looking for treasure after painting a fence? I will tell you, I think my oldest daughter is like, is it Huck Finn or who's the guy who convinces everybody? Tom Sawyer. I think my oldest daughter is Tom Sawyer.
Cool. As long as she's listening to the song Tom Sawyer while she's singing Tom Sawyer.
I mean, she like recently, this was like within the last couple of weeks, she was like, hey, I'd like to throw a surprise party for my friend, and I need a bunch of money. And so she organized all of the kids in the neighborhood into an assembly line of producing things that they would then sell. And they raised like over $100 as a bunch of like 11-year-old girls just selling this like production line stuff. But I mean, they were all really excited to basically work as a factory for her for free so that she could buy pizza for this party.
Huh.
She just convinced everybody that was the coolest thing that they could do with their Saturday that day.
Dude.
So, yeah, she's very persuasive. And like, there's some girls that live next door, coolest little girls. And they think Scarlett walks on water because they're like, what's the coolest thing about Scarlett? I'm like, what's that? She always has an idea of how to make money. I love helping her with her businesses. I'm like, yeah, that's
so she's a little hustler.
She is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's cool. She full on, yeah.
So she's gonna be like probably like some kind of like financial wizard.
Oh, she's terrible with money. She'll be one of those serial entrepreneurs, is what she'll be.
Oh, got it.
She's the kill your founders. The reason that phrase exists is she'll get it off the ground and going and making the initial money, and then she needs to be replaced by somebody who can run a business.
Got it. So she's more like a seed money,
Yep.
you know, and then yeah,
exactly.
So that's so awesome.
Okay, I am done.
Huckster. That's true. I think that's is that actually the origin? See, now I'm curious. Is that the origin of Huckster?
I wouldn't be surprised.
From Huckleberry Finn?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Or did Huckster predate Huckleberry Finn, and maybe that's part of the Huckleberry Finn?
That's
see, now I'm really curious. And this is like the kind of thing that's dangerous for me when I'm working on a page, because I'm like, I want to Google this and go down a rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh. So today I was just organizing all of the assets that I need to create for this animation.
Uh-huh.
I caught myself at least half a dozen times, like on Wikipedia. I'm like, how did I? It's like you wake up from a fugue state. You know, you like, it's like I'm like a blackout drunk who like shows up, and I'm like, what am I learning right now? What is going on? How did I end up here?
Yeah, I've totally done that. Oh my gosh, I had like a moment like that. Yeah, it's just, and my son's been watching this, like a couple of those educational shows, you know, that'll be like answering like, how does, you know, like an airplane fly? And some of that stuff, like I forget, like even the basics, you know, so it's like, it's super easy for me to get sucked into like a kids TV show that's talking about how things work. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I kind of forgot about like,
I forgot about lift.
Yeah. Lift and like the power of lift and like how, yeah, exactly. It's like the plane's carrying itself, and the wind is like the whole point of like a propeller on a propeller plane was like to generate more wind. So it creates the lift, but it's not actually what's carrying the plane. And it's like, I kind of know this stuff, but just being reminded of it, it's like, this is amazing. It's so cool. Like but like it can also be really detrimental to get in those modes where you're like, what was that thing? Or how did that work? It's like the equivalent of it can kind of wind up being like a purgatorial pursuit, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely know it's not the most pleasant thing for my wife if we're like in the middle of Home Depot or something and I get lost in like a Google search, you know, which I think might have happened once or twice today. So.
Oh, today. That's funny. Okay. Yep. I've got 8 o'clock classes tomorrow, and it is 1 a.m. And
nicely done.
I have this done.
I love it.
Except for the sales.
Cool.
Next up, 4 hours of rigging it so that I have 3 seconds of animation later.
I adore that. So, interesting. Well, I will say, like, if anybody's enjoying this, and we're kind of, it sounds like we're wrapping here. So, I will possibly be doing a live stream on my channel in about 5 or 10 minutes because I want to get a little further on this page. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So go check that out. You can check out my stuff at coreykerr.com. And you can check out Joshua's stuff at joshuakimball.com. And the whole point of this is for you to go to irisagency.com, which has been scrolling at the bottom of the screen for an hour and 43 minutes. How have we been going for an hour and 43 minutes? Holy cow.
I can't believe it. It's crazy. But these things always go long. So doing the art helps too, because it's like you lose track of time when you're doing it.
Yeah, it's great because I really did need to get the ship done. I just can't believe it. I wonder if it would be less time to actually draw it than just organize it.
Oh, dude. Frank just solved our Huckle question. Thank goodness. So or you can sleep well.
Okay.
Middle English huck, meaning to haggle. So this actually is cool because that means that when Huckleberry Finn was being named as a character, Twain very wisely probably was like, he's a bit of a huckster. What's a huckleberries? Oh, there we go. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
We learned something new. The more you know. Doom, doom, doom. We need to pull that up, that animation. Like if we could get that so that
you know.
yeah, so that like we could have it pop up when we're having a stream.
I just want to point out that there is a term called hucksteress, which I can only assume is a female haggler. Somebody who a huckstress.
Or maybe it's somebody who's like a seamstress of huckleberries.
Yep, that's what she probably grows huckleberries and could have lengthy conversations that would make me question my choices. A hucksteress is somebody who makes Corey not want to be in the room. All right, so go check out tonight's episode of the IRS, the Indie Review Show, if you haven't already. But do that after you jump onto Josh's live stream, which is going to be going live on his channel in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to go to bed and probably not sleep for a while because I'm probably going to be trying to study how Japanese and Chinese junk sales unfold. Because I think I just realized that I've been assuming a bunch of stuff. And even though this is like a fantasy situation where it's literally pirated or piloted by a pirate Captain Fox, I kind of want the sales to function at least somewhat accurately. So
I love it. Very cool.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for hanging out, Josh. And we'll see everybody at least next week, if not before.
Mm-hmm. Bye.